Hi, Z. Just wanted to comment on your artifact here, The Missionary Family. I read the title and instantly thought, wow, that is me. That is how I grew up. Because I am a missionary's kid. Ended up living 8 years in Africa, 5 in the Middle East. And I completely understand this aspect that you're talking about here. I can remember from my time in Africa, we were the white foreigners. We were, as we had white skin, we were instantly seen as rich over there. Now, yes, we did have much more money than the average local, and we were supported by people in the United States and various churches. But in that, I never considered myself rich, but I was known as the white American over in various parts in Africa. And yet, when I came to the States, I wasn't really American because I was the kid from Africa. So I was, the white African basically. So in either place, I wasn't identified by other people as equal because they saw the differences in me right away, or where I lived, how I talked, and it's a challenge. I know there's a term called third culture kid, where it's the defined as a mixing of two different cultures, and what the third culture kid is caught in the middle. And this is unique for each missionary family. I know in my instance, I uh, was in a different country every 2 years, or spent the max in a country 2 years before going to somewhere else. So, like you mentioned in your post, friend situations. I didn't have a best friend growing up. I knew people for 2 years and then never saw them again. That does an impact how I saw the world, does impact how I started to trust people. Even it even shaped some of the skills I have, where I'm great at connecting with people, learning how to fit into a group, and yet very slowly allowing people into my life, allowing people to trust, allow trust for other people, and that sense. So there are other missionary kids that I know of that spent their whole life as a missionary kid solely in one country, and they were uh, so adapted to the other country that they ended up choosing to stay and work there versus immigrating or going back home to the United States and living life over there. It's very difficult because you can either choose one or the other, and in some ways, when you have been in multiple places, have experience with that, yes, there's culture shock. Um, but there's always this unsettling where you feel like you're missing out. Like when I was in Africa, doing stuff with my parents, whether building stuff or however, I was there, but in some ways I felt like I was missing out on things that were happening in the States. And yet, when I was in the United States doing various activities, I could think of how I was missing out on things in Africa. Um, and that's part of the balance I know I have to work through. Uh, I think time has helped with that, but I think when I was younger, I would have definitely benefited from some counseling. There was one place we were at, I was super depressed, even considered suicide. And all I can say is, but God changed my life and spoke to me, and I chose to trust in that. So there is some advantages to having the missions part, uh, because there's an obvious sense of allowing God to impact your life. And yet there's some of a practical sense of we really need to be heard. We really need to feel like we've been understood as kids, and even families struggling. Because how does a parent see their child struggling, but they know God's called them to that specific country, and yet their child is having the worst time in their life? And it's not that God's call is wrong, But how does a parent even deal with that transition? Is my call to God greater than my call to being a godly parent? Anyways, that could open up a whole nother can of worms, and I could talk for hours about missionary kid stuff and missionaries. So thanks for listening. I love this post. Keep it up.